pharaoh's coffin, and who gaze at the face of the mummy therein, shall die.
The discovery of the tomb of King Tutankhamun in 1922 made headlines around the world. Undisturbed by the ravages of 32 centuries, this was a small glimpse into a civilization totally alien to modern man. Within the tomb, there were golden treasures beyond belief, sculptures and ornaments without price. There was also a curse. Supposedly the curse said, "Here lies the great king, and whoso disturbs this tomb, on him may the curse of Pharaoh rest. Death shall come on swift wings." 6 months later, the Earl of Carnarvon, backer of the expedition, dropped dead in Cairo of an infection caused by a mosquito. Others from the expedition died mysteriously over the next decade. Happenstance, of course. People do die. And Howard Carter, who opened the tomb, lived to the ripe age of 66. Nevertheless, the public took a fancy to the concept of mummies, ancient curses, and revenge stretching through the centuries. 10 years after the discovery of Tut's tomb, Universal Pictures commissioned a story by Nina Wilcox Putnam for their star, Boris Karloff. Her scenario told of an ancient magician who repeatedly murders the incarnations of the woman who betrayed him. He becomes a master criminal in San Francisco with a radio death ray and a television burglary device. John Balderston wisely rewrote the plot along the lines of Dracula. Edward Van Sloan and David Manners repeated their respective roles from that film.
Now I know his horrible plan. He is going to kill her and make her a living mummy like himself.
But the main attraction, of course, was Boris Karloff.
You will not remember what I show you now, and yet I shall awaken memories of love and crime and death.
Jack Pierce, of course, just worked hand in glove with my father on the makeup and actually fashioned it to my father's facial contour.
I believe it might have been Caro syrup and cotton or tissue and layers of it, or the cotton and collodion material. And you stretch it, and it'll, after it dries, you can form wrinkles, and then you cover it up with a heavy makeup.
It took Jack Pierce about 4 hours. It was quite a job. And once it was on, it was on.
When they talk about all the time in the makeup chair, that was for that scene. I mean, that was rubber on his face, or, you know, there was all sorts of stipple and Fuller's Earth.
A few months later, Karloff returned to England for the first time in 12 years to make the Ghoul, another exercise in Egyptian evil. It failed to provide shocks or much interest, despite a cast that included Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Ralph Richardson, Ernest Thesiger, and Anthony Bushell. like the ancient jewel of the story, this film itself was lost for several decades, finally reappearing rather mysteriously in a Czechoslovakian film vault. Universal Studios revised the original story into an action film format in 1940, establishing the cliches that still haunt us.
When I got on the back lot, and I'm lying in bed with a satin nightgown on, and when the mummy came in, it was terrifying. I really got scared, you know? I mean, sort of. It was an eerie feeling. And boy, I let out a blood-curdling scream.
George Zucco played the evil Egyptologist, secretly a priest of a cult, keeping a mummy alive through the ages.
He's alive! Let me go!
I never met my leading man. I mean, I met him only with makeup on. I think it was Tom Tyler played the lead. He had to be into makeup like 4 in the morning because he had to be wrapped round and round, you know. And so when we were on the set, I would come in around 8, all made up too, and they said, "This is your mummy."
Do you mind if I say I think you're a swell person?
Hmm? You're very beautiful. So beautiful, I'm going to make you immortal.
Hey, where's the girl?
Well, you'll never see her again.
I'll give you 3 to tell me where she is. I'm not kidding.
If you were to kill me, you're leaving at large a monster that only I can control.
Adding immeasurably to the mood was the orchestral score by Vienna-trained composer Hans J. Salter. The budget dipped with the next film, in which Lon Chaney Jr. played a rather husky living corpse. Wrapped in rotting bandages and a heavy rubber mask, he was unrecognizable, except by his German shepherd.
Because, you know, he was completely wrapped up in that stuff. We never heard any complaints. The only thing I admired, and very few people realize what a man can do with just using his body, his walk, all the moods and all the things that this poor creature had to experience in this picture, he had to do with just move the shoulder or move the head on the walk. I don't know whether it was summertime, but it was always warm on the sets because Elise Knox, who was a beautiful, charming girl, was wearing a light negligee, and they had to keep the set warm for her, but it was just a little too warm for Lon in that outfit.
High Priest George Zucco lived long enough to anoint acolyte Turhan Bey.
And I loved this young man whose main purpose in life, whose dedication was to bring back to Egypt something that belonged to Egypt, which was a mummy in that case. Or I remember Jack Pierce, who was part of my inspiration. And that Jack was to everybody. He was a very severe little man, you know. People had tremendous... I was very often late in the studio, but never when I had a date with Jack Pierce. I was always a little ahead of time, because in his own way, he never was mean or anything, but he let you know that you did something unprofessional. Because Jack, when you got to know him, underneath that rough exterior, he had people he liked. And maybe I'm wrong, but I had the feeling he got to like me. I said, Turhan, don't expect any kind words from me. I've seen them come and go so often that I just don't have any time for politeness.
This is my happening, and it freaks me out.
Guts film. Cars.